What's going on, man? It's Big Said, Bigced from Said Talks TV. You dig? And man, we done chopped up a whole lot of games so far this year, man. We done got some game for the YNs, for the OGs, for the unks, for the nephews, you know what I'm saying, for the grandbabies, all that, you know what I'm saying? But today, we coming with something a little bit different, man. We gonna come and bring some game for the ladies, man. For the ladies, man. We gotta bring some game for the women, you know what I'm saying, that's endeavoring to have children, and just for the women in general, man, because the thing about it is the difference between a man and a woman, a lot of times when it comes to these relationships, is for women, it's a lot harder for them to get out of these situations. You see what I'm saying? For guys, over time, we kind of get fed up and we be done with the situation. You know what I'm saying? Or if something that's not really benefiting us, we're able a little bit easier to, kind of move away from that situation. Because a lot of times we're keeping our purpose ahead of us and really thinking about what's going to be beneficial for the future. You see what I'm saying? But our female counterparts, they have a hard time, man, once their emotions and things get wrapped up in who they're dealing with. They have a really hard time getting rid of that buster or whoever they got, you know what I'm saying, that's bringing a lot of hell. And I ain't talking about no Hail Mary, you know what I'm saying, to their relationship. And a relationship has quickly turned into a battleship. You dig what I'm saying? So I think something that's very important to note, man, is when you women are endeavoring to get involved with a man, there are certain things that you have to be looking for. Contrary to popular belief, right? Money is not the most important thing when assessing the type of dude that you're going to deal with. You have to assess a person's history. Is their history a mystery, or do you have clarity on their history? You have to assess their character. Character and who this person is, what they stand on, what they believe in, is one of the most important things when it comes to dealing with somebody in the future. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're a woman endeavoring to have children and wanting to raise a family, you have to have somebody that wants to, have a family and raise children alongside you. And a lot of times when women put money first and they don't look at, what type of guy that they're dealing with, they oftentimes go for the dude who's really a hustler, who's out here making a lot of money, who has a lot of plans to do a lot of big things. And a family man versus a dude that has a lot of big plans are not always going to work out. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times as men, we have to decide between one or the other, because we only have so much time. So women, a lot of times what I'm seeing that happens is you all will be wanting a family man out of a hustler, or wanting a hustler to turn into a family man, or a guy who's really on his purpose, on his grind to stop what he's doing and spend extra time with you and yours. And that's always going to be an issue. It's always going to cause a problem, because as men, we have to put that purpose first. You know what I mean? Because when we put our purpose first, that's when women are going to be more attracted to us. That's when women are going to want our time more. If we're not doing nothing, a woman's not really going to be interested in what we have going on, because there's nothing to be interested in. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of times you have to find balance, women, when you're looking for a guy that you're endeavoring to be in a relationship with, spend time with, date with, because you should be dating with some type of intention. You should be dating for the future, whatever your future plans are. And you should be finding a man that is going in the direction that you want to go, who you can trust enough to follow. Because a lot of times what I'm seeing here in this 2026 is you have a woman who gets with a guy, but doesn't all the way trust him. And because she doesn't all the way trust this guy, she questions his decisions. She doesn't want to give him the opportunity to make the decisions, or she just doesn't want to follow him and comply to what he's saying. She often has a reply to what he's saying, but doesn't want to comply with what he's saying. You see what I'm saying? So you have to find that guy that you can trust, because in most situations, you're trusting him with your life. So that's very important to note, right? And back on the family man versus the kind of hustler conversation, stop thinking that you are qualified for a type of guy that you are not qualified for, right? Stop thinking that you are ready to be with a man who is the CEO or really on his purpose and making a whole lot of money, or on the way to making a whole lot of money, and you don't want to make the sacrifice along with him to get him to his purpose, right? I've noticed a good example that I would use, right? It's kind of like Stephen Curry and Ayesha Curry, right? She said that she was expecting Steph to be a school teacher. And I've talked about this before in previous videos, but it's just a good example to use. She said that she thought Steph was going to be a school teacher, right? But the issue with that is Steph Curry's father was an NBA player, a great NBA player. He wasn't a superstar, but he was a great role player and a sharpshooter, right? But he got good NBA minutes and was a quality NBA player, getting paid well, right? So you're dating a dude, a young man whose father's in the NBA and he's playing college ball, but you're saying that you didn't expect him to go to the league. And nobody would ever knew that he was going to become the type of superstar that he was, correct, right? But at the same time, you know, it's possible. When you come from that, it is possible. So you have to be aware that as a woman, when a woman is sitting up here trying to decide on who she needs to be with and who she needs to date, she needs to be aware of the fact that she needs to be aware of where this man is trying to go and what he's trying to do. Not just where he's at, but where is he going? Because a lot of times, man, a person is not where they're going to end up being. And we do a lot of changing over times as human. And I think it's very underestimated how much change we do over time. Look at the last 100 years. You know what I mean? In the last 100 years, look at the amount of change that has happened just in America. You know, there's been a lot of change, man. We came out of segregation. You know, we came out of not having automobiles. We got automobiles. We got airplanes. You know, the internet. There's so many different things that in America impacted how we live as a society. You know, and imagine if those things never happened, right? So when you're deciding that you want to spend the rest of your life with a person, you have to realize that this person is going to change and is going to adjust significantly over the years. You know, we like to, as people, say that we're going to keep it real and we're not going to change over time. But in reality, everything evolves. And yes, you want to stay true to who you are, but at the same time, you are going to evolve over time. And as a woman, when a woman is looking for a guy, a woman has to be aware of that. You know, that's just the reality, you know, and as a person thinks, as a man thinketh, so is he. So you have to be very cognizant of how a person that you're going to be with thinks, because how they think is where they're going to end up and who they're going to become. And women have to be very much aware of that and very much cognizant of that when dealing with dudes. You know, that's just the reality, right? So that is one of the many things that I'm noticing, is that people are not getting with the right kind of people for the direction that they're going, you know, and you have to establish that. And, you know, a lot of times you got good girls wanting to be with dudes that, you know, get into a lot of trouble, and you have a lot of dudes that are good wanting to be with the girls that get into a lot of trouble, right? And it's just kind of a polarity thing, but you have to be aware of polarities. You have to be aware of masculine and feminine, right? But you also have to be selective, and you have to be smart when it comes to a person's religion. What do they believe? You know, when it comes to, you know, the things that are important to them, you know, because in every relationship, it's something that's important to you and something that's important to me, you know, and those things have to be getting met along the way in order for both parties to be happy and to feel like they're being fulfilled. You know, everyone has to have purpose. Even when a woman is following a man and he's on his purpose, there needs to be space made for her to feel like she can live in her purpose as well. Because even though her purpose part of her purpose is to contribute to your purpose, she needs to have little things that she's proud of and she feels like she can achieve, along the way to feel like she's still being successful and not forget that she's grinding and working towards something too. And as men, we have to make sure that we put something in place or give a woman duties or different things to where she can still feel important and not feel neglected. Because women love to serve and they love to serve the people that they care about. And so when you're not giving your significant other something to learn about, to read about, to learn from, then they're going to feel like they're being misused. They're going to feel like their talents can be used better somewhere else. So that's one of the many things that is very important when a woman is deciding to select a man. Is she needs to be looking at his character. She needs to be looking at the type of man that he is. And then not only that, she needs to be aware of, the environment that a person comes from, because there's certain environments that, everyone comes from. But if you're coming from one type of environment and the person that you're trying to be with, it comes from a totally different type of environment, there's going to be a definite learning curve that has to take place. And so sometimes it's a little bit easier to find people who come from similar environments as you, unless you're ready to really learn all about their culture, learn all about where they come from and what they do. And that's totally fine, but you have to realize it's a learning curve that comes with that. And sometimes those are the best relationships, but you have to be willing to do the work. In everything you do, you have to be willing to do the work. You can read a book. You can read a book just like this, right? But if you're not willing to pay attention and to really take notes and to really try to apply what you've learned, to your life and how it affects how people think and the psychology that goes behind a book like that, then it's going to be a waste of time. And the same goes for relationships. You have to be willing to learn the psychology of the person that you're with. You have to be willing to learn human behavior. You have to be willing to understand why people do the things that they do. And you have to know about people. People think that they could just be introverts and think that they can just be successful with their relationships. But there has to be some level of communication, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, that takes place between two parties to where they can get an understanding. And that's just reality. There always usually needs to be someone who is a good communicator. So another thing, when a woman is endeavoring to meet a man, she needs to find out if she's a communicator or not. And she needs to also find out if he's a communicator or not. Because when you have two people that are very quiet, that are in relationship, a lot of times they struggle to accomplish goals and things like that, because, whether it be in a public space or whatever, who's going to be the one that talks? Who's gonna lead? And a lot of times the one that talks is the one that's leading. So I know sometimes women think that they lead from, behind their man and they let their man do the talking, but in reality they run the show. And sometimes that is the case. Sometimes that is the case indeed. But someone needs to be the voice. Someone has to be the one that speaks up and does the talking, right? And then there needs to be someone who's thinking, who's always thinking. And sometimes it could be the same person. The same person who thinks could be the one who talks, and then the other person could be more of a nurturer, or could be a little bit more a reserved person who's more analytical. But there has to be polarity, and there has to be where I lack, you're good at. Where I'm good, you lack. There has to be some type of attributes that both bring, that the other may not have, and that's very important to look for. Where men have strength, women have, are able to read certain situations a little bit better. They're able to use, their emotions to navigate situations and manipulate situations a little bit better than we are, So there's always certain things that we lack that a woman can contribute to, and vice versa, right? So another thing that a woman has to look for is, when it goes to the history of a person. What age is this person? How many relationships has this person been involved with? And why did those relationships not work out? And when you're dealing with this person, is this person exhibiting the same traits from their last relationship? And are they really healed? A lot of times people jump right back into relationships and they've never healed from their previous relationship. And so they exhibit the exact same traits that the last person, if you called the last woman that a man dealt with, she may say, he's doing the same thing. That's something that you have to be aware of as well, right? But also, one of the main things, right, that women have to watch out for is making sure that they don't fall too quickly into something too fast, right? And that they don't fall too hard, because a woman could be in a situation with the most worst of the worst, but if she's emotionally entangled, it's a wrap. Everyone in that woman's life is just going along for the ride. Kids, siblings, co-workers, everyone's just at the mercy of that man when it comes to that relationship. And a lot of times you'll see family members start to separate from that woman because they already know what time it is. You see what I'm saying? So women have to be very careful of when they give themselves to someone, that this person, the moment that they get that person's mind, isn't going to turn into a whole new person or do a 180. You know what I mean? Or things aren't going to get progressively worse, And when you meet a person, they're usually going to show you their best. But over time, it'll progressively get worse. And so you have to be aware of the fact that, people are going to show up with their best, but are they going to continue to bring their best every day? Or every day, are they going to choose you? Every day, are they going to choose up on you and your game and your lifestyle and what you believe in, your character? Or are every day they're going to get worse? Because it's usually getting worse or better. Some people kind of float in the middle, but even Jesus didn't like a lukewarm Christian. You see what I'm saying? So you got to be aware of that. And so don't come into a relationship thinking that you can fix anybody. You can always contribute. You can always, sprinkle some game on somebody or bless somebody with some information that they didn't have before. But don't ever in life think that you could just change a person, especially when you start getting past the age of 30, because people do not change for the most part. For the most part, it takes a real individual to make some change, and that's really hard to do. And so when women are dating, and it's unfortunate because women need to find who they're going to be with younger, because it's a lot harder to find what they're looking for as they get older. But in reality, it's better to have nobody than to be with somebody who's making your life a living hell, right? So don't fall into something too quickly and don't fall too hard. Always know that this could end and this may not be the right situation. And God may be bringing you through a situation to make you aware of other areas in your life where you need to improve, areas where you lack, and areas where you have been neglecting. Because it takes discipline to stay with a person for a long period of time, but it also takes discipline to become successful. It takes discipline to continue to get more intelligent. It takes discipline to continue to lose weight and build muscle and stay healthy. It takes discipline to maintain a relationship. And so a person who's undisciplined in other areas of their life is probably not going to be disciplined in their relationship. So you have to look at those kind of things. Do they overeat? Do they eat a lot that they don't need to? Do they overindulge in certain things? When they drink, are they casually drinking, or every time do they drink, do they have to get drunk? There's a lot of different ways that you can look at different things to identify what type of person this is, right? Another thing to look at is a person's relationship with their parents. Are they always arguing with their mother or father? Is their mother or father actually there in their lives? That's also something that's very important. Is their mother in and out of their life? Was their father in and out of their life? Or did they have a steady household with two parents in their household that helped raise them and bring them up and train them in the way that they were supposed to go? Because a lot of people are growing up with single parent households, and then they get out here into the dating world and they wonder why, they feel like the dating pool is trash. A lot of times the dating pool ain't trash, you're trash, right? Because the things that you're expecting are unrealistic, and the things that you're bringing are not enough for a person to not allow you to be a statistic. You dig what I'm saying? For you to be a baby mama, for you to be a single mother, for you to be past a certain age with no kids, you know what I'm saying? And there's, so there's a lot of different things that you can look at, right? There's a lot of different things that you can assess. But I think that a person's upbringing, a person's character, where they're trying to go, You know, if they can maintain a job, you know, if they see themselves in the future being successful, and what kind of goals are they setting? Do they set goals? Do they read? Do they work out? Do they talk to their parents? Do they have relationships with their siblings? There's a lot of ways that you can address what type of person someone is. But the problem with women is their emotions get involved before they start doing assessing, right? And so sometimes a woman can get too far deep into a situation and for a person to start revealing who they are. And so women have to be careful because emotionally, they are a lot more emotional than we are. And they're also physically weaker vessels than we are, right? They may play a lot more mind games and tricks like that. But once you have a woman and you have her mind, you're driving the ship. And wherever you go is wherever she's going to end up. And so women have to be careful who they give that power to. Because ultimately, it could be the worst mistake that they make. It could be the best, decision that they make, or it could be the last decision that they ever make in life. So polarity is important as well. A really emotional person versus a not so emotional person sometimes ends up being a good mix. Two emotional people together, a lot of times, isn't going to mix well. It isn't going to mix well at all because emotional men, a lot of times, are the downfall of society. Women are, known to be emotional, but you have to teach your daughters how to not be so emotional to where they still can control themselves, to where they still can make decisions under pressure. Decisions when it comes to dealing with people. It is important for young women to learn how to control their emotions. It is important for them to learn how to deal with their emotions, to not just flash out and snap on people, to not ruin opportunities because they feel some type of way. So like I said, we're going to keep kicking the game, man. And this one right here was for the ladies. You dig what I'm saying? So tap back in, like, comment, share, subscribe. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to keep on coming all 2026, man. This is just the beginning, dog. You see what I'm saying? So it's a lot more game that's going to keep on coming. You know what I'm saying? We're going to stay consistent, stay disciplined with it. And you already know what it is, man. Big Set out. You dig?